All right, welcome back, fellow investpreneurs. My name is Chris Sachinelli, and I have the privilege of building, buying, and selling simple, profitable businesses every single day. And today we're going to be talking about a keep it simple growth strategy that folks used to use, right? This is actually a pretty prevalent strategy in like the early 2010s, right? When we were in a different economic climate, right? At that moment in time, we were still coming out of the Great Recession. There wasn't all of this VC money being thrown around like we've been experiencing for the past 10 plus years, right? The funny thing about that is, when times are tough, you kind of have to do the hard work, right? We are very resilient as individuals and humans, and especially as bootstrappers or investpreneurs, like we figure out what we need to do to be able to get to the outcomes. So there's like a ton of strategies that used to work, and then they kind of just drifted away over time. It feels like because folks could just hit the easy button and just use cheap money, realistically raise cheap money, and then use that cheap money to buy results and buy customers and buy outcomes. Just pay more, hit the easy button, and I feel like it's led towards maybe folks taking a lazier approach to a certain extent. And in some situations, a lot of the skills, abilities, and traits that folks learned in the hard times, have it just hasn't really transposed over to the folks that didn't really have that and had the luxury of kind of taking the shortcuts over the past 10 years, growing their careers, right? And if you think about it, those of us that had to do that, then we're kind of in different positions now where we don't necessarily, have to do the tactical stuff, and the folks that are doing the tactical don't know the strategies. So for those reasons, I want to start to share some of these tactical strategies. Like, let's get strategically tactical in ways that we can actually get to simple, profitable outcomes from simple strategies that work, right? And then get to tactical execution within them. So this is a really simple flywheel type of approach, and it's all built off of creating micro products, right? And the key things that we want to talk about here and the why behind it. So the first thing that we're building for is definitively profitability, right? So this isn't a profitable approach to growing your customer base, your user base, and ultimately get you to your core profit, your profitability outcomes, right? Your profitable outcomes. So in this situation, I'm just going to use the frame of reference of a bootstrapper, right? So somebody who's bootstrapping a business, limited resources, and then we have this desired end result, this goal line of, let's put simple scenarios, simple examples. First one being, let's get to our first 100K in profitability. The next one being, let's get to a million in profitability. And then that final goal line for the bootstrapper being, let's get to $10 million in profitability, right? Let's bootstrap our way there, because if you can bootstrap a business to those milestones, you are going to be in a very comfortable position in life, right? You'll have a ton of free cash flow, right, which will be able to cover all your lifestyle needs and all those things. And then you'll have an asset that you'll own that at any moment in time you can go and sell, exit out of for a significant windfall. And since you bootstrapped it, you own the majority of the equity. So when you go and sell it, you also get to keep the majority of that upside outcome. And it's truly life-changing events. Like, if we kept it real, then bootstrapping a six-figure business and exiting out of it is a life-changing event. It's going to put money into your retirement account that takes a ton of pressure off, right? It's going to take a ton of economic pressure. It's not going to change your life to the point where you're financially free and you can retire, but it will take a tremendous amount of pressure off of you and give you a little bit more independence, financial independence. You build something to bootstrap to $1 million, there's a good chance that if you have good money management skills, you live a reasonable life, like that could be an actual like freedom event for you, right? That's like a freedom milestone for sure. You get something bootstrapped to 10 million or greater, that is definitively a life-changing event, and likely going to be a multi-generational life-changing event, right? If you manage your assets and your money appropriately thereafter. Right. So these are big milestones. These aren't huge numbers that gobble up headlines every single day that you'll see on TechCrunch and stuff like that. But like, these are true life-changing numbers. And what I want to show you today is how realistic it is for folks to go out, set simple goals, right? Define what your simple outcomes are, and then build a strategy that you can execute to be able to get there, right? And this video is just a strategy. This isn't like the whole business system or how to approach all of this. So we're kind of fundamentally approaching this as though you already have, a product in market, right? You're already selling something profitably. You already know who your core target audience is, who your customer is, who your ideal customer persona is, who you create value for, and what that value exchanges. We're making assumption that that already exists. And this is a strategy to get more, right? To hit the more button and do so in an economic way, where you're not just spending, throwing good money after bad, or potentially burning, having a high burn rate where you run out of money because you're not managing cash flow appropriately. This is good for good, practical, profitable growth, right? So again, it all starts with that platform product plus community, right? And I love to think about products being a community, right? If you're solving somebody's problem, the reality is everybody you're servicing has something in common. That's the problem in which you're solving. And typically when you look at a community, there's that one central point to a community thing, a commonality that brings folks together, right? So I love to have a community oriented perspective when I look at products and customer bases, right? I think that every business realistically should have a community underlining platform to it, right? Very, very important because, again, the better in which you can actually lean into a community, the economic results of that, exponential. It's going to be easier for you to get customer feedback. It's going to be easier for you to upsell things to your existing customer base. These things reduce stuff like what we're talking about today, customer acquisition cost. It makes it cheaper to incrementally grow revenue, right? Like if you can repeat business with existing customers, have existing customers refer folks because they know, trust, like you, etc., right? All that stuff reduces customer cost. And then it also increases the customer value, right? They're buying more from you over time. So like that's just high level stuff. And then, into this strategy, if you have a community and you're really in tune with that community, you can start to ask them and have conversation and dialogue. Like, what is a simple outcome, right? Like, what's a simple outcome that you would like to get to, right? And when we look at business, it's really outcome oriented conversations. It's not necessarily a problem that I'm solving for. It's the outcome that I have after that problem solved, right? Like that's what we buy is we buy outcomes and we buy value. So having a platform product community, it puts you in a position to be able to have conversations, to be able to understand, in this situation, I said outputs, but really it's outcomes, which can allow you to identify the core of the strategy, which are simple value that you can easily create and deliver that will be at a low cost for somebody to be able to buy, but yet still covers the acquisition cost, the economic cost of acquiring a customer. And that's a very wordy way of saying and describing a micro product, right? So a micro product is something that solves a problem. It gets somebody to a simple outcome that they actually truly want to get and experience. It's very simple. And because it's very simple, it's easy for you to deliver, right? Because we also know that like a lot of the economic costs associated with operating a business comes to the product delivery, right? It's not necessarily the other thing. It's realistically delivering the value that you're charging money for. That's where a lot of the operational expenses are. So you want it to be easy to deliver. So thus it's low cost, right? Low cost, simple, economically viable for you, also easier to make and then thus deliver too. And you could do this repetitiously. But you want that value, right? The perceived value of somebody, buying the product to be higher than that of what you're charging for it. And you definitely want to charge, right? This is like, another way of looking at this micro product strategy. It's very, very similar to like what we've seen in terms of like white papers and lead magnets and stuff like that. Folks realize like, oh, I could, build a lead magnet and the value of that lead magnet is greater than, the cost of asking somebody for their email. And thus, because I can offer that, I can get what I want, which is the email, and then I can nurture that lead over time and, hopefully get them to buy something, right? So that's like traditional, internet-based, lead magnet funnels. This is the same type of concept as that, only the asterisk here is we're actually charging for these things. So these truly, you want these to be micro products where they're actually something that there's enough meat on the bones to it, where somebody sees a perceived value where they're willing to pay, take out their credit card and pay. And you want to capture the payment, right? The why is because by capturing that payment, right, if you can figure it out right, then by capturing the payment, you can actually cover completely and or most of the cost associated with acquiring the customer. And if you could figure out micro products that actually at the end of the day cover the cost through your ability to bring your go-to-market strategy, right? So we're going to have a micro product that delivers a clear, simple value. An example of this would be maybe like something like a Notion, business operating system, or like a simple template, right? That somebody can actually, or an Excel spreadsheet, something that somebody can actually use, right, and get to utility with, right? You want there to be utility so that there's the perceived value, and thus they pay, and thus they buy, right? So you want it to be really simple, something like that, but it's a true product. It speaks to your core audience, right? And again, hopefully because you have that community, it came from your core audience. And then you're going to put it together. You're going to lead with video content, right? So you want to be able to communicate it. You want to be able to capture, right? That helps with the audience delivery, right? Helps with the visualization, helps with the mechanisms to be able to position it for value to sell, right? Then you're going to create a landing page for it. You're going to then put up a blog post with really good optimized content, right? Good copywriting, but also optimized for search engine, right? So it performs well in the long tail. Because again, the good thing about this is if you do these first three things first well here, then it's going to continue to live on into perpetuity, and you'll always have an acquisition engine that comes off of this. Once you do that stuff, then you want to leverage your own email list, right? Like what you own, to be able to blast it off. And hopefully you've already created and captured kind of like a launch list from your community. That's how you captured the initial ideas of what you're even building. So that's going to be your initial traction. It's right. You're going to push that out there, get folks to buy incrementally or engage incrementally. This is like great to take an MQL, a marketing qualified lead, and then bring them on down further down the life cycle to an SQL lead, right? Actually get them to buy something. Then you want to hit all of your distribution channels, right? And for an essence of time, I'm not going to go through all of the different distribution channels that there are out there, but right, like your standard ones, you want to go out and work with through your partner relationships to be able to get them to blast it out, right? Like all of the distribution channel relationships that we use as growth strategies, you want to hit them and run them here. Launch it on Product Hunt, etc. Right? Work PR, right? Get it out there. And then if at the end of the day, everything is economically viable, all of this stuff is going to allow you to test whether or not this product actually works well. And while you're working through the messaging, right? That's why a lot of this is heavy copywriting up first, right? You're getting comfortable by creating the content because you create the content with video. You can then create the landing page. You know what it is that you're positioning. So then you can write the blog post. So now you're writing good copy. So now you can write a good email, right? Good engagement. Now you can provide that to the partners that you're working, right? Like there's a ladder that it flows through, for a why to make it easier for yourself. But as you're doing this stuff, you're paying attention to the details and you're seeing the performance and you're trying to optimize this thing to peak performance. And peak performance is the point in which it generates profitability. It's generating profitable outcomes, right? It's a profitable product for you to bring to market. And then you know what the margins are off of it. You know what the profitability is. And then you can start running paid ads. And the moment in time in which you start to run paid ads begins to tick towards being a good success for you and what we're trying to work towards. Because the end goal here is to be able to figure out and hone in on the paid side of customer acquisition costs. and get the paid customer acquisition cost to be less than the profit that you're generating off of selling that product. And if you can make this micro product to be break even, or even if it loses a little bit of money, but you want to aim towards break even and or profitable if possible, now you have a flywheel, right? Now you're able to continually run this and market this, right? Because all these things up top in this ladder, this stuff goes away over time. Granted, like the blog post and like the evergreen of the video and everything, that kind of trickles it. But if you can keep it on, where you can toggle this on as a faucet with paid, then you can control it more. And now it becomes an actually very successful flywheel for you to work with. And what that's going to do is allow you to grow your customer base, right? Because they're going to be coming in from this micro product, and then you're going to be able to convert them into your platform product and your community. And again, that's why community is really important. And community could be things like an actual community. It could be things like your newsletter. It could be, right, anywhere in which you're having engagement and audience and conversation, collaboration with your audience, customer base. That's what we define that as. Now, hopefully you guys can see the value of doing something like this and how by putting this together and approaching it the right way, you're literally able to build simple things that cover the cost of getting more customers. And then all of a sudden, this pool that you have just continually grows and grows and grows. Right now, I just want to stop, pause, appreciate that, and then reposition to like our goal that we set at the beginning of this call, this conversation, which is to get to 100K, a million, and then 10 million, and our why behind that, right? And in order to do that, what we really, really want to be able to do in promoting good, like basic fundamental principles is to acknowledge the fact that our key goal is to be able to get and have an offer, like an offering, like a suite of products and services that we can provide and sell that collectively can create $10,000 or more in annual recurring revenue, right? This is like definitively the case for SaaS, but it also translates over across the board because the numbers are the numbers. But if you could build something where you can generate 10K or more a year from the customers in which you're converting, your likelihood of getting to 10 million bootstrapped is really, really high. Why? Because there's really good economics behind that. And then it's super simple math, right? 10K a year, that's 1,000 customers, right? To get to 10 million. To get to a million is 100 customers. To get to 100K is 10 customers, right? So those are like really simple goals and simple milestones. And then the way in which you do that, the how in which you do that is to rinse and repeat strategies like this. Like this type of strategy is a really practical way, because then it's just a numbers game. And the way in which folks don't hit the numbers is typically because they can't afford to continue to grow their customer base. But by leveraging a strategy like this, you can indefinitely, into perpetuity, continue to grow your customer base. And it's a ladder stack, right? So you have a ladder tier and you're working your way up towards that 10K ARR as a simple goal. Because you know that if you can build a business system that gets it to 10K per customer on average, then your likelihood of getting to 10 million is present. A million is very high and 100K is almost certain, right? Especially if you can do it at scale. So the first tier of this value stack is this micro product. It's, can you get the micro product to cover your CAC? If you can, that's a check mark. You now have this base of customers where they covered themselves in terms of getting into your platform, into your business system. That's a huge win. Your next goal is to then have a core established offer, right? Which, you know, we have other videos where we talk about like how to approach that. So I'm not, for essence of time, to talk about that on this call. But like that's like your staple thing, right? Like that's your like core, you know, if it's a subscription SaaS, like that's like the most popular plan that you offer, right? Like whatever it is that you do, that's going to be like the most profitable realistically and popular, right? So you want the best price at the cheapest cost to deliver, where you're getting to the best unit economics, right? You want really good unit economics towards that, and you want to be able to focus folks there and know the fact that the value outweighs the cost. And you want to be able to have the value outweigh the cost in that core offer so that your retention rate is really, really high. And by having that, that's the next tier. And then you want to have a really clear value offer. And you want that value offer to be the thing that gets folks over the hurdle to the point where you can actually achieve a 10K ARR or greater, right? So you need to have kind of that top tier, value type of offer where it's actually realistic, where you can work relationships up or down, however you think about it. Because this could also be like a reverse funnel. I could also put it the other way. And you got the value, the CAC up top, then you're doing the core and the bottom, right? So just a matter of perspective. But then you want to be able to get there. And by getting there, you have a really good business case at good business economics that you'll be able to then get to those other milestones, 100K, a million, 10 million, right? This is a super practical strategy. Hopefully you were able to follow along. Hopefully this made a ton of sense, right? There's way more weeds that you can get into, that we can get into this with this. We have other videos that kind of supplement and complement some of the core concepts around like the what, the how, and the why, in terms of doing some of the parts of this section. And then we'll continue to put out more content, of course, as well, because at the end of the day, it's just, you're building a business system, right? So we're all trying to build a simple, profitable business system at the end of the day. And because we have we understand what the business system is, and we know what the goals are, we understand what the inputs are, etc. You can optimize it over time, and then you can get to simple, sustainable profitability. And the moment in time in which you're able to get to simple, sustainable profitability, that's a huge win, and the likelihood of you getting to where you want to be is super duper high. All right, look forward to hearing your feedback in the comments. Definitely like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Otherwise, if you're inside the community, please share your thoughts.